Hello, HMS Bobcats. Mr. Flato here. Welcome back to another great week at the Helena Middle School, or another week of working from home through the Helena Middle School. On today's lesson, this week's lesson, usually at this time of the year, I do an academic lesson, and given how different this year looks, I wanted to put a different take on it. I know the challenges, academic challenges that is, look a little bit different this year. Maybe some of the old challenges are still there, new challenges added to it. And I was thinking, as I was helping parents, guardians, kids navigate the online world, about reaching out to some successful eighth grade students who have clearly figured out how to navigate the system and are doing very well for their advice. So I had 5 different conversations with 5 awesome eighth graders. Thank you, eighth graders, for helping me out with that. You'll get your kudos at the end of the message, or excuse me, at the end of the Bob lesson. And I kind of asked them what it was, their game plan, what they were doing to be successful, and I'm now ready to share that with each and all of you. So on that note, let's get rocking and rolling. We're in October. Let's get in a groove and let's persevere and let's grow in our greediness and let's control what we can control and let's get these things handled. Have a great week. All right, Bobcats, we're off and running on this week's Bob Lesson Academic Success, the 2020 version. But first, let's be our best wherever we are this week. Let's be safe. Let's wash our hands. Let's wear our masks. Let's be responsible. Let's be respectful, and let's do our best to overcome and be learners. All right, as promised, these were the tips that I got from the eighth grade students. Tip number 1, every student I talk to keeps somewhat normal sleep schedule. They don't go to bed super late on the days that before they're not in school and then go to bed at a reasonable hour the nights before they are in the building. They all were consistent with keeping a somewhat normal sleeping pattern. That is something I talked about 7th grade with Mr. Nicholson's class in the health. Got to keep on a normal sleep schedule. It's not fair to your body and your physical health when you are going to bed and sleeping in and not being consistent with that. You cannot be your best if we're doing that. Tip number 2, they wake up every day at a reasonable hour, meaning we don't sleep in forever on the days that we're not in school or on the weekends and then get up and put our body through that shock treatment the days that we are in school, for those of you that are in school. And once they get up, get out of bed, all of them, this was consistent as well. They said the first thing they do is made a plan for the day and also for a week, using those weekly agendas that your teachers put out to you all, either printing them off and making a physical copy or taking and writing in your assignment notebook under each day everything that needs to be done, so that when we get later in this tips midweek reevaluation, we can go cross off what is already done, cross it off as we get it done and submitted and turned in, and also be aware at all times of what we still need to get turned in by the end of the week, when they're due, so on and so forth. Tip number 3, and this one was really interesting because everybody kind of had a different philosophy, but everybody did have this thing in common, which was they work on one class at a time, and only keep open the necessary tabs needed for that class. I know when I was going through this, if I get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tabs open, I start to get overwhelmed, trying to flip back and forth of where I'm trying to go. I think at any given time, probably need the Clever tab open, probably need your Teams tab open, maybe your Office 365, and then if you're in social studies, maybe a TCI tab, or Amplified if you're in science, or online math book. But let's try to keep how many tabs we have open to a minimum. Which order do we do our schoolwork? It was interesting. Some kids wanted to get their hardest work done first, whatever subject is hardest for them. Some would work on the hardest and then work to the easiest. I had one student that said, I get my easiest stuff out of the way so then I can just really dial in and focus on my hardest stuff. A lot of kids would do it in numerical order. So they would do first period, second period, third period, so on and so forth. Which is the right answer? I would do whatever works for you. You got to figure out a plan, come up with a system, build that routine, whatever order works for you and stick with it. Tip number 4, do you chunk it out or do you do a whole block? Again, I heard different strategies with this, and the answer is much like tip number 3. You figure out what works for you and stick with it. I know me, I'm a chunk person. Chunking means I'll do one class at a time and then take a little break. Get on to my next class, go take my dog for a walk. Get on my third class, finish that up, get a snack. Do my fourth class, have some lunch, have some screen time, watch some Netflix. Come back, do my fifth class, sixth class, and take little breaks in between. We chunk it out a little bit at a time with breaks in between. I also talked to a couple students that said no, they just sit down and they work through it all morning, maybe take a lunch break early into the afternoon, and then they just get it all done. And when it's done, it's done. And then they enjoy the rest of the day and they want to maximize that time. Some people get in that workflow mood where they're working and they don't want to interrupt it for a break. They may take like a quick brain break, but for the most part, they're sitting down, they're dialed in, and they're getting it done. Once again, we got to figure out what works best for you. If something's working for you, chunking or blocking it out, then stick with it. If something's not, maybe try the other strategy. Tip number 5. This was a really interesting one. Make the most of in-class time. I talked to students who was like, take as much notes as I can. I'm getting all my questions answered from the teacher when I have the teacher right there. Utilize the ability to have physical access to your teachers if you are a cohort A or a cohort B kid. If you're a DLI kid, make sure you're using that Wednesday time or that after 1:45 time to be able to connect with your teachers. It is your responsibility to advocate for yourself. If you have questions, if you don't understand something, if you need clarification, reach out. It's your success that is on the line and your learning. So make sure you're taking that seriously and reaching out to your teachers and getting everything, questions and guidance as needed. Tip number 6, I think brain breaks are very necessary. I heard this from all kids, whether it was a short 5-minute brain break as part of the block time, or whether it was a half-hour brain break, go out for a walk, get some sun, get some fresh air, take the dog for a walk. We need to take brain breaks. We got to get up and we got to get moving. When you're in school, we have 4-minute breaks in between each class. That would be more of a block style, but let's get our brain breaks in and get up and get some movement, go enjoy the nice weather, fresh air while we have it. My 7th tip was a midweek reevaluation. So midweek, if you started every day by getting out of bed at a reasonable hour, and then you got your weekly agendas, midweek, let's take a reevaluation. Let's make a new list of what we still need to get done, make a new list of what we have the rest of the week, cross off some stuff that is done and be done with it, and just really reevaluate midweek where you're at, where your progress is, so you can plan the back half of your week. I thought this was a really good strategy, from a really successful kid. Actually, a couple kids that I talked to did kind of the midweek reevaluation period. All right, special thanks to those kids, Eva Skibicki, Margot Muskevich, Isaac Loftus, Abigail Arnold Jaquez, and Kenzie Criswell. These are Bob kids that just do it right and are having success with it. I really appreciate them taking time out of their day, responding to my message on the 8th grade counseling page, and taking their time to connect with me and share their strategies so that the rest of their classmates and peers hopefully can have some success as well. I really appreciate it, Bobcats.